So Gaurav and Bilal from me, Hrishi K, and everybody who's listening and watching, thank you for talking to us.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having
So
us.
Hussain Zaidi is known to me, and and whenever there's an exciting new writer that he kind of discovers and stuff like that, there's always a shout out, whether it's a Shadab or a Vivan now.
Yes.
And I remember him a few years ago telling me, there's this incredibly bright 20-year-old kid,
Oh wow.
and he's written this novella, and they had it sent over, and I remember reading it thinking it's quite extraordinary, and it's wonderful that you've come such a long way. My question to you is, and I asked Ribu this, and unfortunately he couldn't answer it, saying that you were so much younger when you wrote this novel,
Yes.
and given that you've matured, as we all do with the sands of time, when you approach a screenplay, you sometimes want to go back and correct yourself, right?
Absolutely.
Was that happening a lot?
A lot. That was happening a lot, and we have done that. Mayank Tiwari, the screenplay writer, and we worked on this show over I think 7-8 months. We had inputs from him, Shahrukh, so everyone. But fundamentally, I knew several things that I wanted to do differently. I mean, the 23-year-old me that time wanted to do things differently the 19-year-old me had done, and now I'm 25. So it's going to happen after years. You'll always look back. It's always an evolving process, I think. So definitely, we made a lot of changes. The overall storyline is more or less the same as the book. We made some massive changes. New characters have come in. Some have gone out. Dealt with a lot of things very differently than I had in the book, and got that opportunity to tell the story in a new way. And I think this is a better version of the story now.
How do you get Shahrukh as your boss, or somebody who's the father figure at Red Chillies, to actually do a marketing campaign like what he did with Imran, which is sound like, he came across as the goofball, Imran was the cool guy and things like. I thought it was remarkable for a man to just put aside his own ego and do what he did. Did he buy into it immediately? Did he have a lot of discussions internally, Gaurav?
I think with him, every time you have to discuss and you come out with a campaign, I think it's more him than the campaign itself, because eventually he has to go out and execute and perform in front of camera. So it's actually him who kinds of lead the whole process and navigate it towards the direction which we all collectively feel that is best suited at that point of time for the promo or for the film or for a certain creative to come out.
So I believe it was Shah Rukh's idea to have Kirti Kulhari's character in there.
Yes.
'Cause she's not in the book.
She's not in the book,
Yeah.
so that's a new character we've created. The germ of that character came from an idea Shahrukh sir said that as soon as he enters the mission and goes into that terrain, what we really have missing is a good fleshed out woman character. We need that because it's such a testosterone charged world. We don't quite have that. So that came when we were pitching the show to Netflix that early on. So we loved the idea. We went and we then created Kirti's character from scratch. And now she's such a crucial part of the show. She's driving those episodes that she's in, So it's that's why I kind of said that this version of the story has gone notches higher than the one in the book because of these new characters and new dimensions that have been added.
And correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, sorry, you were saying. Yeah.
Not just adding the character. I think once we added the character, the massive debate was not about the character as much as what it was about whether to kill her or not. I think the whole room was divided.
Spoiler.
That's okay.
Yeah.
But even otherwise, there are some anomalies which I want to discuss with you. One is Vineet's character is just inherently strong in the series, but he is an opium addict. I mean, at some level, and normally addicts are not so well built. Physically strong. So how do you rationalize that? And secondly, I buy that he's a Shakespeare professori, but to get back into action, he's got to be in the thick of things. And you could have asked Imran to go and build his body, but he hasn't. That's one thing I want you to comment on. And finally, I mean, just a little more time could have been spent on Imran and Rajat Kapoor's relationship, because that so-called protege, mentor, it just was too little. Maybe the episode time would have gone further. So I want you to comment on these three things, please.
Sure. See, at that, actually what we were trying to do is tell the story in its best possible way, keeping in mind that it's an action, fast-paced thriller. At the same time, we didn't want to compromise on character development and relationships to that level. But there were some scenes that we had to let go of. It's not like we hadn't thought of it and hadn't written that out, but the Sadiq Kabir one especially. But we realized that the actual heart of the story is the mission itself. So let's try to get to that the soonest as possible. As far as the opium part is concerned, I think what we've shown is that Vineet's character is definitely strong physically, and he's doing these really great action set pieces. But we wanted to also, in a way, show that he's so addicted now to the drug that he is in, which has now become a part of his undercover life, that it's all part of his commitment to the cause, which is being embedded in that cover. Hence he's taking that, hence he's trying to buy the trust. But it's an interesting point that you raised, that we probably could have seen a little more of the after effects of the addiction. We did that a bit in the book, and again, because we were concentrating so much on the mission and the trappings of what is usually a spy thriller, the plot points, we kind of had to remove some scenes like that which were more internalized and stuff, so we could maintain the pace and the tone that we had built. Otherwise, it would have looked a little out of place.
I like the casting. I mean, it's fantastic. Did you hire a casting agent, or what was the casting process like?
Of course, we had a casting agent. I think everyone has to go through
Who
their
was
set
that?
of
Who was that?
their set of auditions. We had Prashant Singh.
Okay.
I don't remember his casting company name, but yeah, Prashant did the casting for us.
Wayward Monk.
For us, more than, I think it goes back to writing. If writers are probably giving a definite character and basically creating those nuances within those characters, and so it becomes easy for us to then cast. If you, I mean, you've seen it. If you see Vineet's character, if you see Kirti's, if you see Shobita's or Jaideep's, and even for that matter, Danish Hussein's character, they've been crafted and created in such a way that it becomes okay. Now, who can fit this bill? Who's closest to this? And the good part about the show also in the casting is that most of the actors, I think, all of them have not played this kind of role before, and they have adapted pretty fast to what they are playing now. So I think
And even Shobita's, I mean, I must commend you. That could have easily been the hot babe in the pack, but it's so much more than that.
Unfortunately, in the book, she was a version of that, which is one of the things I got to change.
I was trying to allude to that.
No,
but
it's fine.
good. Like I said, we all grow up.
You
man.
grow up, you
yeah.
learn. I mean, I was 19, so you can understand.
also the conscious call, I think Bilal and Mayank's conscious call was to keep it close to reality in terms of,
Yeah, sure.
as probably would be in an intelligence office.
Yeah,
Simpler.
and just I think we had a cusp of seeing content where a male or female can't be a cardboard cutout character. You have to flesh them out. You have to write them as if they're real people. So in that sense, yes, we moved away from the book in many aspects with many characters.
So just Hussein's inputs on the text of it. I mean, I have very fond memories of him being a reporter at the
Yes.
Midday and then writing Black Friday.
Yes.
I was a part of the group because Radio
Wow.
1 was part of the group as doing radio,
Yeah.
and we used to have fantastic crime shows on air. Talking about the crime of yesteryears, and now he's moved on to this mentoring kind of role. So his inputs in Bar of Blood.
Without him, it wouldn't have happened, the book, because and without the book, there wouldn't have been the show. So it all starts from Hussein in a way. I was actually assisting him on his own book, Baikala to Bangkok, and
Which is a
all the
fabulous
books that
book, yeah.
came after. He had come to college to give a lecture, and he needed a team, just some people who could transcribe all the wonderful exchanges he has with even more wonderful people. So I was a part of one of those teams, and then slowly, I think over a period of time, he realized that I can write a bit myself. So he asked me, "Are you writing something of your own?" And that time I had 3 or 4 chapters of Bard written out, but he read that. He didn't say anything for a month. Then it turns out he'd actually pitched it to Penguin. And Penguin had interest, but they were only willing to publish it if they saw half the book, because they said he's 19, what will he write about this particular zone? I mean, it's valid, obviously. So yeah, then when they showed interest, I scrapped those 4 and began writing it seriously. And I used to go over to his house and we would sit and he would help me craft the narrative. But more importantly, he would help me with the research and even though it's a fictional world, just to create that world, you need to have some amount of reality feeding in. So a lot of that came from him.
And also the fact that you've co-written with Imran. I mean, what
Yes.
a fantastic bloke again.
Again, Hussain sir put me on to Imran. That's how. So the first meeting I had with Imran was a week before Bard of Blood was supposed to be launched, and the book. Unfortunately or fortunately, whatever, you need a celebrity to launch your book, otherwise it won't get the traction it needs to. And I was very scared of, asking Imran, and he just, Hussain sir said, listen, he needs someone to launch his book, will you do it? He said, of course. And that was the start of a great friendship now, Imran's one of the closest people in my life. And that book was a turning point, Kiss of Life, the one we wrote for me.
Yeah, yeah. And really, in that aspect, he's such a fantastic actor.
Yes.
Just an insight into the man, he makes it look so effortless.
Exactly. And also
but
the
he's,
image
he's also very strikingly intelligent, I find.
He is,
Yeah.
and that's the first thing I remember. I mean, I walked in, obviously not allowed to see his films as a kid, but when I walked in to meet him, I expected the character that he's been playing so convincingly on this 10 years before. And he's completely opposite. We were talking about Paulo Coelho and books that I didn't think, he'd be reading. And it was superb. And after that, we just started jamming on his book, and it just worked out so well because...
You spoke about his acting capabilities.
Yeah.
I think a lot of time we've been asked this question, how, because Imran has not played this kind of character before, so how convenient it was for him to switch. I think just because he's simply so immensely talented, I don't think we realized how easily he just got into Kabir and we just saw Kabir completely in him. I don't think we had to spend too much time on
As
workshop.
the creative head and as the production company, didn't you insist on the kiss, the mandatory kiss?
I think I insisted on knocking it off.
Because some people actually view it as a superstition. I'm telling you, some producers.
No, they brought it close. They brought it pretty close, and I watched the wall right in between. So no, just kidding on this one. I think they were quite. I think they were writing the story, and wherever it could fit in. So
I mean, organically, there was a place it could have fit in, but why? It's not the tone of the show.
It's not the tone of the show, yeah.
And it just leads to unnecessary chatter around that when the show is much more than that.
Was there a lot of internal debate about number of episodes? I mean, that's in the journalism community, that's a big point of discussion. And some people say, why is it just 7? It could be more. Some people say, no, it could have been lesser. So how do you really get a fix on whether you want to do 7 or 8 or 9? Because I don't think Netflix in any case turns around and says you've got to, do so many episodes.
I think they seek certain amount of visibility.
Sure.
Because a lot of costing is attached to that.
Yeah.
The timelines are attached to that. But eventually when you start writing and the writing progresses, whether you can sustain that number or not. And over a period of time, you can adapt and probably work around on number of shows, where you can tell the story appropriately, probably doing justice to all the characters.
Also, the genre that a spy thriller is naturally lends itself to faster telling. So a crunched amount of episodes will make sure you get through it in a quicker way because it provides that adrenaline rush to the viewers in a way.
Did you workshop with the Netflix team to kind of figure out that? Because you've not done this before. The series.
None of us had, yeah. Netflix did have very, very good people from their end who were always in touch with us, and they would read our scripts and give us inputs at every stage, and would always be there if we needed them to, chat and help us craft it. But more or less, I think Mayank, he and then I, in that order, we would have these discussions with each other and Netflix, and then we'd bounce it off him, Ribhu. So it all became a very collaborative process. And Netflix was in on it at all times, they knew what's being written and how it's being written. They had very good feedback to give.
Last question, what's your favorite show on Netflix? You're not allowed to say Bard of Blood. What's your favorite show on Netflix?
The Spy, that's a recent one I saw.
Yeah.
So I think what happens is you have multiple favorites these days. It's not that you're probably waiting for one particular season or one particular show to come back. I think these days, what you see last becomes, but I also started liking a lot of these docudramas which have come off late. They're doing pretty well. I think Now They See Us.
When They See Us, that's my favorite one.
So that
I think
came up.
it's very heart-wrenching and moving.
Also, it also talks about the number of episodes. I think it goes back to the conversation of number of episodes.
Yeah.
It's largely the story which dictates the number of episodes. Yeah.
When They See Us.
Yeah, When They See Us.
Cheers, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.